The alchemy of essence. What a man gains when he gives. In the silent, unseen chambers of the human body, a profound alchemy is perpetually at work. For men, this process revolves around the creation of a potent life force, semen. Across centuries and cultures, from the yogis of ancient India to the philosophers of classical Greece, a compelling theory has persisted, the theory of vitalism. This is the idea that within the male seed resides not just the potential for physical life, but a concentrated essence of a man's vitality, his creative power, and his very spirit. From this perspective, the act of ejaculation is not merely a biological release, but a significant transfer of energy. Consequently, the concept of semen retention emerges not as a practice of deprivation, but as one of cultivation. It posits a radical idea that when a man consciously chooses to retain his seed, particularly outside the sacred context of procreative sex, he gains something immeasurably precious. He gains himself, refined, fortified, and fully actualized. To understand this gain, we must first deconstruct the loss. Semen, in the vitalist view, is not a simple bodily fluid to be produced and discarded at will. It is considered the quintessential distillate of the body's most precious resources. Ancient Chinese medical texts and Ayurvedic teachings describe a process where the body refines food into blood, blood into marrow, and marrow into semen, the final, most potent product. This substance is seen as the repository of Jing, the fundamental energy of life force associated with longevity, vitality, and constitutional strength. Every ejaculation, therefore, represents a substantial depletion of this stored reserve. Every culture that has studied life energy recognizes that men carry within them a form of concentrated creative power. The Taoists called it Jing, the Hindus referred to it as Ojas, and the ancient Egyptians spoke of Ankh, the breath of life. This energy is the raw material of creation, the same force that can generate new life or fuel personal transformation. Semen, from a symbolic perspective, is not just reproductive fluid. It is the distillation of a man's blood, energy, and consciousness. It represents everything he is capable of: his focus, his vitality, his discipline, his courage, and his creative drive. When a man learns to preserve and refine this essence through semen retention, he is cultivating the foundation of inner strength. To retain one's essence is to reclaim control over one's most powerful source of energy. The man who lives consciously understands that not every moment of desire deserves an outlet. Instead, he transforms that energy into action, creativity, and clarity. When a man and woman come together in union, the interaction extends beyond the physical. It is an energetic merging, a meeting of masculine and feminine frequencies. Both give and receive, both affect and are affected. From an energetic standpoint, the masculine essence is active, outward moving, and penetrative. It symbolizes direction, protection, and creation. The feminine essence is receptive, inward, and nurturing. It symbolizes growth, intuition, and embodiment. When these two forces harmonize, energy flows in a circuit. Masculine energy invigorates, feminine energy stabilizes. When a woman receives a man's essence, she is not just receiving physical matter. She is absorbing the energetic imprint of his state, his thoughts, emotions, habits, and level of consciousness. This is why ancient teachings emphasize purity, discipline, and intentionality in men. If the man is spiritually grounded, emotionally balanced, and respectful, what he gives carries light and harmony. However, if he is careless, lustful, or fragmented, that energy carries confusion, instability, and restlessness. In this way, the man's inner world is transmitted energetically to the woman through his essence. The woman's body is naturally designed to receive and nurture. Spiritually, this receptivity also operates on the energetic plane. When she receives a man's essence, she absorbs the energetic quality of that exchange. If the encounter is loving, intentional, and sacred, she may feel empowered, emotionally nourished, and spiritually elevated. In many traditions, This is seen as the woman receiving seed energy, a symbolic spark of creation that can awaken deeper layers of intuition and embodiment. This is not about superiority or dependency. It is about complementarity. The feminine gains by receiving energy that is directed, purposeful, and infused with masculine clarity. That is why a man's discipline and semen retention holds such importance. The man who retains learns to charge his essence with strength, vitality, and purity. When he eventually shares that energy within a sacred, loving bond, what the woman receives is not depletion, but blessing. She gains an essence that has been refined, an energy that can harmonize with her own and help her expand spiritually. The sacred responsibility of the masculine. For centuries, spiritual masters have taught that a man's seed is not something to waste. In Taoism, it is said that each release of essence must be intentional and aligned with purpose. In yogic thought, loss of ajas weakens the mind and nervous system. The principle is not rooted in shame or repression, but in awareness of energy as a finite and valuable resource. When a man practices semen retention, he is not rejecting his natural desires, but mastering them. He learns to control the fire rather than be consumed by it. This discipline builds spiritual strength, emotional stability, and clarity of purpose. Thus, when he chooses to unite with a woman, he does so consciously, not from lust but from love. His essence becomes a vessel of positive energy. It carries the vibration of mindfulness, strength, and respect, qualities that uplift rather than drain. In such a union, the woman receives not only his seed, but the consciousness behind it. The energy carries the memory of his discipline, devotion, and awareness. This is why spiritual men were always taught to guard their seed, not out of fear, but out of reverence for its creative power. The feminine energy, by nature, is alchemical. It transforms whatever it receives. Physically, a woman's body can transform a single cell into a living being. Energetically, she can turn raw emotion into intuition and chaos into creation. When a woman receives a man's essence that is full of strength and spiritual integrity, she alchemizes that energy into growth, radiance, and nourishment. Her aura brightens, her emotional energy stabilizes. She becomes, in a sense, the living embodiment of what he has poured into her, not in ownership, but in shared evolution. This is why spiritual intimacy is powerful. The man gives energy, the woman transforms it. Together, they create something greater than either could alone. But this alchemy can only occur when both energies are pure and intentional. When the exchange happens in lust, fear, or emotional instability, the energy becomes distorted. The woman may feel drained instead of nourished, restless instead of calm. The sacred becomes mundane because the intention behind it was not aligned with respect and consciousness. Energetically, every intimate act leaves an imprint. The more spiritually sensitive a person becomes, the more aware they are of these subtle exchanges. A woman, due to her receptive nature, often carries the energetic memory of the men she has been with. This is not punishment or superstition. It is simply the nature of energy transfer. When a man's essence carries unresolved emotions, addictions, or negative energy, it can linger in the woman's energetic field. Conversely, when his energy is rooted in love, strength, and purity, it uplifts her. This is why spiritual teachings encourage both men and women to approach union with reverence and discernment. The energies exchanged during intimacy can influence emotions, thoughts, and even spiritual clarity. The woman who understands this does not see intimacy as mere pleasure, but as a sacred ceremony. She becomes mindful of the kind of energy she allows into her body and spirit. When a man practices retention, his energy accumulates. His body becomes a reservoir of vitality. His mind becomes clear and focused. This stored life force refines into magnetic presence. It can be felt by those around him. In a sacred relationship, when he chooses to share that energy intentionally, the effect is profound. His partner feels supported, grounded, and connected. The woman, in turn, mirrors that energy back as emotional depth and intuitive warmth. This cyclical exchange creates what ancient mystics called the tantric circuit, a flow of life force between masculine and feminine that nourishes both without depleting either. The man retains his energy, yet shares its essence through presence, breath, and consciousness. The woman receives, transforms, and amplifies it. Both rise together in vibration. This is the spiritual foundation of what many modern thinkers refer to as conscious intimacy. It is not about avoidance, but transformation, turning desire into devotion, pleasure into prayer. In today's world, the sacredness of sexual energy has been largely forgotten. The culture of instant gratification encourages men to release without awareness and women to receive without discernment. The result is emotional fragmentation, spiritual fatigue, and disconnection. Many men find themselves depleted not because of physical exhaustion, but because their life force is scattered through unintentional acts. Many women find themselves emotionally entangled with energies that do not serve their growth. Reclaiming sacred understanding is not about moral judgment. It is about energetic hygiene. It is realizing that our most intimate exchanges carry spiritual consequences. Energy, once exchanged, cannot be taken back. It can only be transformed through awareness. This is why semen retention, mindfulness, and intentional relationships are gaining renewed interest. They restore balance and remind us that our bodies are vessels of divine energy, not instruments of fleeting pleasure. At its highest form, the exchange of essence between a man and woman becomes a path of awakening. The man learns to master his energy. The woman learns to refine and elevate it. Together, they grow in love and awareness. The man who retains and refines his essence becomes more than a lover. He becomes a source of healing. His energy calms the woman's nervous system and strengthens her inner world. The woman who receives this energy consciously reflects it back through compassion, inspiration, and intuition. This is the divine dance of masculine and feminine. It is not about control or dominance, but about harmony. When both partners understand the sacred nature of their energies, they move beyond lust into a union that uplifts the soul. When a woman receives a man's essence in love, awareness, and mutual respect, she truly gains something precious. She receives not just his energy, but the quality of his being, his discipline, his love, his strength, and his consciousness. That energy can inspire her creativity, awaken deeper levels of compassion, and expand her intuition. It is as though his disciplined fire becomes her nurturing warmth. The exchange completes a spiritual circuit where both rise in vibration and understanding. But this gift is only precious when it is intentional. Casual exchanges without awareness cannot carry this spiritual nourishment. They scatter energy instead of elevating it. The woman who receives consciously and the man who gives with awareness engage in one of the most sacred acts known to humanity, the merging of two souls in creative power. The philosophy of semen retention is, at its heart, a path of radical self-responsibility. It forces a man to ask a fundamental question: where am I investing my most vital energy? Is it being spent on fleeting digital fantasies, momentary pleasures that leave him empty, and habits that erode his power? Or is it being conserved, cultivated, and channeled into building a life of purpose, vitality, and impact? When a woman receives a man's essence, within the framework of a conscious, loving, and potentially procreative union, he gains the profound treasures of intimacy and legacy. But when a man, through the discipline of retention, chooses to keep that essence within himself, he gains something else entirely. He gains a formidable reservoir of energy that revitalizes his body. He gains a lucid and powerful mind. He gains emotional equilibrium and unshakable confidence. He gains a magnetic presence that draws opportunity and respect. And most importantly, he gains the redirected creative force to build his world and leave his mark upon it. The precious thing he gains is, ultimately, the full possession and mastery of his own potential. He ceases to be a tenant in his own body and life and becomes the sovereign. Please thank for watching this video. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share the video with your friends.